In this video, we'll be looking at using the director class, or the director.lua file, so that we can change screens in our app. So, we've got this main.lua file created in the last video. Now we're going to modify this main.lua file so that we can use the director class. Just as a reminder, if we're using the director class, this is the project folder I'm using, recipes. So in here we've got the main file we created. We've also got this director.lua file scroll view, which we'll use later on in util, which is used by scroll view. For this video, you just need to make sure you've got the director.lua file. That file is available from this web page. If you just Google Corona SDK director class, you can get a copy of this director class file, which just makes changing screens in a Corona app a lot easier. So, with that in mind, we'll get started. Now, we're going to have to modify this main.lua file quite a bit. In fact, to the point where this file, which we created here, and it just is this intro screen, actually has to move and become a whole separate Lua file. So, actually, I'll just show the finished product here. We look here. This screen is actually a screen called intro.lua. We click the begin button and then we go to another file called menu.lua, and that's the way director actually works, is that each screen we look at is a separate Lua file. So this is menu.lua, click here, this is recipe1.lua, go back, we're looking again at menu.lua. So in fact, if we look in this folder, the recipe's finished, we can see we've got our main file, but then that loads up the intro.lua file, which is that intro screen. Then we look at the menu.lua file, then we're looking at recipe 1 or recipe 2 and so on. So that's the way director works. Each screen is a separate Lua file. Now the main.lua file we don't actually see. It just sets up some groundwork, things that are required by the director class to work. So that's what we're going to look at in this video, is setting up that main file. So come in here. First thing I'm going to do is resave this file, or do a save as, and turn it into the intro file. So intro.lua, and we'll come back and modify it a bit later so that it becomes our intro screen. In the meantime, we're going to set up the main.lua file. So file, new, and file save as. Save this as main.lua. Yes, I'll replace the old one. So here we're going to, again, we won't actually see our main.lua file. It in turn just will load the intro.lua file, but it needs to set up a few things so that the director class can work and change screens for us. So the first thing we're going to do is declare a function called change scene. Now this word function simply means a group of instructions. It's a group of instructions that will run at some time throughout the app's life. The name of this group of instructions is change scene, and like the name says, it's going to help out with changing the scene or changing the screen in our Lua app. Talk about what the E in the brackets is there very soon. Just going to continue here. So we're going to say if e.phase equals ended. I'm just going to type this out and then I'll come back and explain what's going on. Then say director change scene e.target scene. I'm going to say end and then end the function. So this is our whole change scene function. It begins here and ends here on line 5. You can see they match up. First thing inside there is this if statement. What an if statement does is it checks if a condition, checks if what's in the brackets here, which is called a conditional, it checks if this conditional is true or false. Now, if this conditional is true, then we will run the instruction here inside the if statement, which in turn will actually change the screen for us. The condition it's actually checking is, has the touch of the button think of E as the button itself, in a way, the button that's been pressed to go and change screens, has its phase, or basically, two of the most important phases are begin, when someone presses that button or touches it on the screen. There's a begin phase. There's also this ended phase, which is when someone actually ends that button press. So they're taking their finger off the button, basically, and it's ended. So if they've pressed the button, they're taking their finger off the screen or off that button. So, and again, think of E, in simple terms, it's not quite true, but you can think of E, for now, just as the button itself that's been pressed. Has its phase of it being pressed is that equal to, a double equals is a comparison. We saw here actually a single equals is just placing something into a variable, is what the single equals is used for in programming languages. The double equals is a direct comparison, saying, is the button's phase, is it actually equal to this ended sort of state as the press ended. So if this is true, then we're going to do this. If it's false, we're not. So you can think of this part here, I guess, as like a gate. Okay, so if this conditional is true, the gate opens and we go and run this instruction, which will actually change the screen for us. However, if this is false, then the gate stays locked and we're not going to run this instruction and we're not going to change screens. So this part here I'll explain a bit more later when we actually go and build the button and go and change screens. In the meantime, just going to set up some more of the required things that the director class needs. What I'm saying here, this require, we're creating a variable called director and we're requiring here the actual director file itself. This is basically just going into the folder and saying here, here's the folder, just include this director file so we can actually use it in our app. Next up, say local main group equals display dot new group. New group, a group is a variable that just sounds like it's a group of objects. We'll come back later and explain in much more detail what a group is and why we're going to use it. For now, I'm just going to say main group insert director view. We're placing something into that group, and then finally we say director change scene, and we want to go and see the intro.lua file, which straight away will just, as soon as all this runs, it's going to call change scene, which will take us to the intro.lua file here, okay, which is actually the first screen we'll see with that background and the button on it. So the most important part here is actually just this function here, change scene. It's going to be used throughout our app to actually change screen. The rest of this stuff just sets up the director file so we can actually use it inside the app, and then actually also calls the first Lua file, which we'll actually see in our app, which in our case here is the intro.lua file. In the next video, we're going to work a bit more on this intro.lua file so that we can actually use it in conjunction with the director class in our new main file here. So I'll just save that one, and let's actually just check this works. So we should, when we launch the main file, it should show the intro.lua file. So coming over to the simulator file, open recipes, main, there we go, it's taking us to our intro.lua file. In the next video, I'm just going to work a bit more on that intro.lua file and get it working here.